I'm glad to know that I'm not a creep. I don't know why. Like, I think maybe that's because I try and go out of my way to not be creepy, because I just assume that, like, of my age and being around such, like, that's the tough part. Like, I'm not like old, but like I'm older. And so like you're around young people and stand up all the time. And I think this is the first group of young people that have come through where it's like, oh, there's more to learn from them than I can teach them.
That's
like,
so sweet.
I would say you, Elijah, Noah, like Pope, like there's a whole group of young guys or people coming through the Cleveland comedy scene who like actually know more than some of the veterans because they grew up in the era of social media. Like social media to you guys comes very naturally to you. Mm-hmm. Where like somebody like myself, who's a little bit older, like I struggle with it because, you know, I never really had to take it seriously up until like, you were like an idiot to take it seriously up until like 5-6 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then it all hit all of us all at once, being like, oh shit, we do, like, it's almost more important how many followers you have in comedy than it is like what you've done or who you've worked with, and et cetera, et cetera.
I was talking to, who the fuck was I talking? I was talking to somebody the other day about this, where it's like followers is so important nowadays when getting booked places, and it's kind of frustrating because it's like I have like an okay amount, like I'm almost at 6,000, which is great, but it's like there are some people with way more followers than me who are doing so well, and it's like some of it is very much deserved. Like Elijah and Noah, I'm like there are people where it's like their followers I think translates to skills, like they're so good, but then there's some people, I'm not gonna name names for this end, but I've seen headliners who have like 200,000 like followers like bomb and like while headlining for like 40 minutes, and it's like, oh my god, what is happening? Like it's so weird.
Well, there was also an era of people who like you were a shitty comic if you were famous because of a social media platform. You were considered a shitty comic, or you were assumed to be a shitty comic because of a social media platform, because you're like, oh, well, you can't do long form content because you got famous off TikTok, or you can't do long form content because you got famous off like Twitter or something. And all you do is say your tweets. There was like a whole, like probably good 2 or 3 years where it was just comics who were only famous because of Twitter. And all they did was like basically reread tweets.
Yeah.
But and try and like, oh, they just took all their tweets and then it's like made them into a stand-up form. So all of their jokes are like 30 seconds long. Mm-hmm. And it was like, man, and none of it was like coherent, and it was very strange. And they were like forcibly trying to bring up the topics to work in their tweet, shit like that. So now it's like, well, if you were famous off, or if like you got a following on Instagram, that doesn't mean you're a shitty comic. Mm-hmm. It just means you put the whole fucking work in, and you gained all those followers. So it's kind of refreshing to see it go from that to, you know, you being a legit person who's bookable, where before it was like, oh, why bother? But like, why bother booking them?
Mm-hmm. It's definitely interesting. I think too, we're like, because with social media, everyone's trying to find like this weird navigation thing where it's like, because also a lot of people my age kind of went through that like phase in social media where like we first got Instagram in 6th grade and we were just posting like the most stupid fucking things like on Instagram, like a fucking like selfie in the bathroom at lunch break in like 6th grade. Mm. And now we're like refining it to be like, okay, we can shit post, but we got to streamline it a bit. And I think like that attitude generally with social media is kind of also coming to fruition because of COVID. Because during COVID, everyone was shit posting and just getting followers like crazy. Like my TikTok got like to 20,000 followers over COVID because I was just like,
shit.
I was doing like sketches and stuff, but there was some stuff that I made where I'm like, this doesn't make any fucking sense. So everyone's just bored, but I think we're recovering from that for sure.
How funny would it be if like I'm so behind on social media that I'm like still posting selfies of me in the bathroom being like,
would be so
hey girl.
You would be the only acceptable person to do that. Like you're using the fucking dog Snapchat filter like 10 years late. I think that's fine, honestly. You're the only person who could get away with it.
It would be it'd be weird, like a juxtaposition of like, this doesn't look like this guy should be doing this, but it's so endearing that like and he's so lost in this, and maybe he should be doing it. I don't know.
Well, there are some people who will make those kinds of content like unintentionally. Like my favorite other side of social media is seeing like old people who have like never used a computer like try to do social media. Like there's this one guy that my friend showed me who will just take videos of his food and be like, Facebook eats first, today I'm having Golden Corral, and it's like, so he does it every day. Every video gets like 3 likes and I'm one of the only viewers.
Aww.
And it makes me so happy.
That is very cute. But then there's a whole like slew of like TikTok people who are like just annoy their grandparents, being like, say it, grandma. And they're like, you know, they'll like say like pizza. And then like, they're like, that's their whole TikTok of they're like pestering their grandmother to say pizza. And it's like brought to you by Domino's. So like, it's ridiculous. Or like somebody who has like not mental health issues, but like mental disabilities, like they'll exploit those people for like social media, and we all enjoy it and we have a laugh and it just brightened our day up. But it's like, what toll is it taking on that person that like, and how fucked up is that that's what your family member's doing to you in order to get like 25% off, you know, dick pills.
Yeah. That's like, not to get all capitalism ruins everything, but capitalism, not like just capitalism, but there's also like a lot of people who just do social media for the I want followers, or like I want to get a viral sound, versus the people who do like social media for like funsies or like because they actually have something to say. Like I feel like there is that parallel between social media and comedy, where it's like I'm a firm believer in like comedy out of like spite or anger or like for a marketable purpose is not good. And that's the same for social media, I think, inherently, if that makes sense. I don't know.
No, it makes sense. It's just that I'm of the era of, or like my generation is like, at this point, the only reason we're doing any kind of social media is out of spite. It's spiteful posts. Like, we don't want to be doing this. And there's still a part of us that feels like this is bullshit. And we don't want to be a part of it, but we know we have to because now it's our jobs.
Yeah.
Like, even if you were to ask me like 5 years ago, like, oh, they're teaching classes on how to do like social media marketing, or maybe not 6 years ago, maybe a little longer, but I would have been like, that's ridiculous. Like, that was like my moment of, or my generation's moment of like the computer, you know, like my parents' generation, like my dad is a computer engineer. And when he was in college, all of his teachers were like, you need to get out of this profession. This is nothing more than a fad. Like, your profession's going to go away within a few years. No one's ever going to use computers, et cetera, et cetera. And look at the world today where everything's run off computers. Yeah. So, like, I think that's kind of like where my head's at now is like, well, I guess I was wrong about that.
Yeah. That is fair. I think like, okay, I do think social media for some marketing is like, for comedy marketing is fine. Cause it's like, I mean, that's just like, come see our shows. But it is kind of unfortunate that it is kind of part of our job now.
Yeah. And it sucks too, because it's like, oh, am I just as bad as like Cheetos? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what they do. They like, their whole focus now is every major company today, like, all their focus is on social media presence and blah, blah, blah. And then like to have those same goals and mindset as like Frito-Lays or Pepsi or Coca-Cola sucks.
Yeah, I will say some like big corporations do it kind of fun, like Denny's. I love the Denny's like Twitter account, like that kind of thing. It's like you can tell whoever the social media intern is like goofing off with it, like they're having a good time,
and no one's paying attention.
Oh yeah,
or they don't know enough about it to go like they shouldn't be doing this.
Exactly, like they'll just like say shit, like them and like Wendy's. I think is the other one where it's like, what is happening? Like who are running these accounts?
Yeah, that's crazy. Also, too, I was following the TSA for a while, and like the shit that they would post was so like fucking so funny. Like there's this shit that they would find is like ridiculous.
I gotta look up the TSA Twitter now.
It's fun.
That sounds awesome.
It's a fun Twitter account. It's like, well, like it's some of the stuff that they find. You're like, who thought they could bring that on a fucking plane? Like we're all familiar with how this works now. This isn't like 2003 where like, what, you can't bring a switchblade on a fucking plane?
Yeah, it's like have common sense.
Right. It was like, what fucking happened to America where you can't bring a fucking butterfly knife on a plane anymore?
Mm-hmm. I will say I've accidentally brought some things on planes that I'm like, how did this get through? Because I've gotten dinged for water bottles, but I've accidentally brought like lighters, and I think I did accidentally like have a knife in my bag once, and they just like didn't catch
That's
it.
crazy.
My ex, the one you wanted to fuck,
That wasn't on the podcast.
I'm sorry.
You're referencing something that it was cut out.
Can we cut
now it's back in.
No, now they're not gonna know what I'm talking about.
Well, I don't care because I'm not gonna edit it past.
That's so valid.
We're past the point of editing.
That's fair. I might incriminate him a bit with this, but he like he smuggled weed into Colombia. Like,
oh, that's not that big of a
which
deal.
isn't terrible because there's probably more weed in Colombia than there is in the US.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard about Colombia before.
Oh, I've heard, but no, he told me that. I was like, dude, what? Like, are you insane? So I don't know. TSA confuses me.
In my mind, like that's the cocaine capital of the world.
Yeah.
What do they give a shit about fucking
weed?
It's a little baggie of weed.
Gummies? I don't think they care.
Yeah. You're like, oh, you brought weed, dude. We have people ODing off our shit.
Dude, you think
weak.
that's good? You should try this.
Right.
Do they have fentanyl in Colombia? Probably, right?
Fentanyl's everywhere. Yeah. I just assume it's everywhere. I don't know to be a fact that they have like fentanyl in Colombia, but I can only assume that they do.
Probably.
Yeah. And it, coming from Ohio, like the doorstep of the fentanyl crisis.
God. It's insane. Dude, there's so much fentanyl like in Oberlin where everyone's like, do not take any drugs anyone offers you at this school. Like at all.
Yeah. It sucks because there's a whole generation of us who were able to do drugs and not have to worry about that. And I mean, obviously it's drugs, so you still need to be responsible with it. But like, especially with cocaine, where like it used to be such a fun drug to do. And now it's like, if somebody offered me coke tomorrow, I wouldn't not because I have a problem with cocaine, but like, I have a problem with cocaine.
The risk to reward ratio.
But also with the fentanyl now in it, like, fuck that. It's not even worth it anymore.
I do carry test strips and Narcan. I think I have my test strips in my pocket right now because they give free ones out at Oberlin.
It's awesome.
Is this it? Yeah, look, my little test strips.
That's amazing.
My little Oberlin test strips.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, shout out Oberlin for giving us free anti-drug stuff.
You get free anti-drug stuff, and probably they probably hand out condoms, right?
They do. My RA has like a bag of condoms like taped to her, that's an insane story. So should I say that?
No, you're fine.
It's probably fine on the pod because I won't name any names.
Yeah, don't name any names. But also again, like I couldn't imagine like. I came up during a time where like sex was just so fucking taboo all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, don't talk about it. And like, or it was just like taboo to have condoms in general. So you like hide the fact that you bought some. And now it's like, now everybody just talks when it's out in the open. Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but like, cause I don't really want to judge one way or the other, but I definitely think it's probably better to be more educated on like, how to have safe sex than it was when like I was growing up and like it was like almost like embarrassing to have a condom.
Yeah, well, I think it's like better now that it's more like talked about because then more people are like aware that they need to get tested and like stuff like that. It's like there's definitely some upsides because I think I was like in the realm of like I think like right when I think honestly, after COVID, everyone was just like, fuck it. Like, because I remember high school, it was kind of taboo. And then when I got to college, everyone was just fucking going at it. And I was like, okay, I don't know if COVID did that or if it was just like, it was definitely inevitable, but I think COVID kind of pushed it.
Yeah. I mean, what was it like going to college during COVID?
Oh, God, it was awful. Like because I graduated high school in 2020, so I got like the Zoom graduation, which I kind of liked, honestly.
Crazy.
Like I kind of loved it because my group chat was just like we were just fucking lighting everyone up while they were graduating. Because I remember
you and I graduated very similar ways. Where like I was pretty alone when I graduated because I was homeschooled.
Oh yeah.
So,
dude, I can't believe you were homeschooled. I forgot.
More of like
the point of this podcast.
It was like more of a phone call.
A phone call.
Oh, hey, you graduated.
That's so funny. Like,
All right, I'll tell my mom.
did you even get like a piece of paper? Did she like color something for you?
I don't. Did she color something?
I don't know.
She may have. Bless that woman's heart. She might have.
Dude,
I
gotta find that.
That is very funny. Did she color it for you?
I'll color something and be like,
I have no idea. I don't even know what happened to my college diploma. Maybe she has. I have no idea what happened to any of it.
Mine is in my room back home because we had to, oh my God, we had to like drive through it. We like did a drive through line. We picked up our diploma. We picked up our shit from our lockers because we didn't have time to.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went home. Like that was it.
Wow.
It was, dude, it was an insane time. I think back to COVID because some people are like, I miss quarantine. And I'm like, yeah, I could maybe use like a week off, but like not that long.
Yeah. When it first started, we all thought, okay, it's gonna be over in like a month at most. And then next thing you know, it's like a year and a half later and you're like still fucking in your house, just like hoping somebody's grandmother doesn't die.
Dude, it was the fucking worst. Well, because also Oberlin was awful with COVID. Like in the sense of like they like somehow did too much and too little at the same time. Because like when I got there, they were like, you have to quarantine for 4 days and then get tested and then you can go outside of your dorm, which that like I kind of got because I think most other places were. But they made us wear masks to class through first semester last year. So
whoa, really? That long?
Yeah, but at one point last year, while we were still having to wear masks in class, they stopped providing free tests. And if you went to go get a test from the hospital, it was like $200.
Whoa, that's fucked up.
It was insane. And so like they were like being so weird with it. Like they were like, we don't want anyone getting sick, but also if you get sick, go fuck yourself. Like that was the general vibe.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school in the suburbs of Chicago. So, because that's where I'm from initially. And they were like, honestly, it was the whole thing with us was they were being strict about COVID because we were so close to Chicago and they were counting us as a part of the region Chicago was in.
Are you guys in the same county at all? Or?
No, we were in different counties, but it was like they drew out maps and I started, me in fucking high school, I started a petition to like get us separated from Chicago in the maps. It got like 30 signatures on change.org. I don't know why I thought I would help, but like that's how bored I was. I was like, I'm going to be the person that makes a change. And then nothing ever, I mean, they eventually did separate us from Chicago, but like, I want to say like 6 months later.
So you graduated in 2020.
2020.
Oh, well, thankfully you didn't have to spend your whole senior year like during COVID. That would have sucked.
Dude, that would have been awful.
Well, I guess did you have to spend any of 2020 your senior year at all?
So we got released from school March 13th. I remember exactly because it came over the intercom and they were like, everyone's going home. And it was right before spring break too. And then they were like, you'll come back after spring break. And then we never did. So March 13th, 2020, last day of high school.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine having to go my senior year, like in quarantine. I mean, I guess it wasn't that much different than what I went through. Well, I went to post-secondary. Do they have post-secondary in Chicago?
I don't know what
so post-secondary is like you get to go to college a little early or take college course classes early. So my sophomore year of high school, I started going to the community college. Like that was like right around by my house. So I was able to take a lot of college courses during that time, which was like the only like high school experience I got. Like it was such a fucking culture shock for me because, and everybody's at that time, like at least 3 years older than I am. Okay. Everybody I'm in classes with is at least 3 years older than I am. There's nobody in my class that's my own age. And
that's terrifying.
And I'm homeschooled and have horrible social skills. I'm horrified by everything. Like I was like the guy who today is very different from that guy who like in high school who was like just horrified. And like also too, like when you're 15 years old and then you're in classes with like 18-year-old girls. Now those are girls, but then I was like, holy shit, these are women. And like, yeah, it was just hard to focus because, you went from being in just your room doing all your classwork to now being in a classroom with a fuck ton of people. And just, it was just like information overload. So I struggled that first semester, but like after that, I was fine with my schooling, but socially I probably struggled the whole time.
Yeah. I remember I was very awkward in high school and middle school too, but for wildly different reasons. I was just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing here. That was wild. I can't imagine being homeschooled though. That does sound like insane.
I think it's kind of relieving though. I do find that like a lot of the times that a lot of people who went to actually public school, like in my head, I'm like, oh, I was so awkward, blah, blah, blah. And I had such horrible social skills because I never went to public school and I still struggle with it. And then I go talk to other people too, or like the very least comedians who were like, yeah, I was super awkward then too. So I was like, okay, but just because they went to school doesn't mean that like, I guess even the kids that I knew in my neighborhood that like they went to public school, they seemed so much cooler than me.
Mm. Yeah, I think like, I mean, everyone at that age is like somewhat awkward. Even at the time, like, I remember thinking like certain people were like way more confident than me. And like looking back and I was like, no, we were all fucking like 13, like doing like who knows what. Like, I remember because for 4 years when I was in middle school and high school, I wore a back brace. And that was like, that kind of made me way more awkward. But like, I still had like a core group of friends. And it definitely contributed to who I am.
You're just making these things up so I find you endearing.
So you feel bad for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wore a back brace. No, I did actually, though, for 4 years because I had scoliosis. And it was, dude, it invited some mean people into my
I bet.
Dude, I had a teacher one time bully me for having a back brace.
Oh my God. What'd they say?
Oh my God. So this woman was such a fucking bitch. So
Yeah, we could put this person on blast. Fuck
yeah,
them.
I don't know where she's at now, but okay, there were teachers who were like bitches to me in middle school. Now looking back at it, I'm like, yeah, middle schoolers kind of suck. I do get it, but also this was like uncalled for. So I had gym class right before lunch. And I always had to put my back brace on after gym class because I couldn't wear it to gym class. I had to like do gym things. So I would put on my back brace and I was walking to lunch late because it took me a second to put on my back brace. And this woman comes up to me and she was like, first of all, she wasn't even a teacher. She was like an office assistant who like came to class sometimes. She came up to me and she was like, why are you late for lunch? And I was like, I had to put my back brace on. And she was like, do you have a note? And I was like, I'm fucking wearing the note. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
What do you mean? I'm wearing the note.
Like, it's quite obvious when I have it on.
That's
like,
so
you can
funny.
See it. And then as she walked away, like, this was like my first act of rebellion, like, ever, I think. I like whispered to my friend, I went, knock on me, bitch. And like, I didn't say it to her. She didn't hear it. But at the time, I was like, I'm so proud of myself. And my friends were like laughing hysterically. I was like, let's fucking go.
Dude, they would give me sweats.
I was so mad. I was like, that was like the first time I remember like feeling, no, I've definitely felt anger before that. But that was like when I was like spiteful. I was like, you fucking bitch. Like, what do you mean?
I mean, I never really spoke out like that. I never called somebody a name like that. Man, that would be so satisfying.
Yeah. I wish she heard it. Like,
there's been plenty of times where I've like stuck up for like what I believed in and probably not for the best. There was one time I got asked not to come back to a church because they had a speaker there who was saying that like the book that they did, Tom Hanks did a movie about it.
Sully?
Though the what do you call it? Da Vinci Code.
Oh, Da Vinci Code.
And he was talking about how the book, this was before the movies, and he was talking about how the book is blasphemy and how it's it's a slap in the face to religion and to Christianity, and it's like a total lie, blah, blah, blah. And all I said was, I rose my hand, he did a Q&A, I rose my hand, and all I said is, if I were to find this book, what section of the store would I find it in?
That's so funny. That's so good.
And he said the fiction section. I was like, that's all I needed to hear. And I sat down and everyone was like, holy shit, this guy's full of shit. And we just spent an hour and a half listening to an asshole.
That's awesome.
And I was asked never to come back to a church called Church of the Open Door.
That's so, have you done that on stage?
No, that's why I like doing this podcast, because then you're like, holy shit, that's a bit.
Yeah, dude, that's insane. Church of the Open Door. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah, so I'll probably go back, listen to this podcast, write that down, and then eventually that'll probably come a bit.
You should. I still need to make a bit about the back brace thing because I only
That's
have like one
funny
joke.
as fuck.
I only have one joke about my scoliosis because used to do more stories and I stopped, and I need to do a story about that at some point. But I've never been asked out of a church. I have been disrespectful in a church though, because I'm Jewish, but I grew up in like a ridiculously Christian hometown. Like it's known, it is like what I think it's having the most the most churches per capita in Illinois. I think that's one of the things it's known for. But it was like always a thing where whenever we'd have a sleepover with a friend, I would go to church with them just because that's like what happened. If you slept over and woke up on a Sunday, you're going to church. I remember there was one time where my friend was like, "Do you want to come to church with us?" I was like, "Yeah." And we wake up at 6 a.m. and she was like, "We're going to church." I was like, "The fuck you mean we're going to church?" I get there, it's a 6-hour service.
Oh my God.
And I was like, "Are you serious?" I fell asleep during the service because I was so tired. And she had to be like, "Hannah, wake up." And I was like, "Dude, like what are we doing?"
6 hours.
And I had to do like youth group too. And oh my God, this was my favorite part of it.
So they knocked it all out in one day.
Yeah, they fucking really went through it. And like this girl ended up like kind of bullying me in middle school. She's cool now though. I think she's since come out as like bisexual, and I'm like, I knew this was gonna happen.
White flight.
Yeah, but she like during youth group we had to write down a wish for one of our friends, and this girl fucking writes down she wishes, "I wish Hannah would convert to Christianity."
Whoa.
And I had to be like, "Yo, can you change that?" And she changed it to, "I wish everyone that I'm friends with would convert to Christianity." And like I said,
especially Hannah.
Especially Hannah. Like this girl is cool now. I haven't spoken to her, but from the vibes I've gotten, she's like chill now, which is cool. But I was like, damn, this is crazy. I'm in 6th grade.
That's nuts. Yeah. To be like, I wish they would give up their own religion and be a part of mine. I grew up in a church, and but 6 hours is crazy. Though I probably spent at least 6 hours a week in church due to the fact that, like, you know, I would help them set up. The church I grew up in was a remote church. Like, we didn't have a building for the longest time. So every Sunday we'd have to go there early, help set everything up, like all the sound equipment, everything, set up chairs. Basically what I still do today for Secret Society, but for a church.
Hell yeah.
So like we would do that every Sunday, and then that would probably be about like 4 or 5 hours. And then we'd have youth group too. So that's probably another 3 hours or whatever. So yeah, somewhere between, but to do it all in one day, fuck that. That's crazy.
What happened? Youth group was lit. There was another time I accidentally did communion once, which was cool. Because one of my best friends growing up did Irish dance, and
you got peer pressured into.
It wasn't even peer pressure. I just like got like, it was peer pressure.
Yeah, it was peer pressure.
I was nervous. I was so nervous.
Everyone else was doing it.
Everyone else stood up, and I was like, I guess I'm standing now. Because like before one of her Irish dance competitions, they had like a Catholic service, and I was just like zoned out the entire time. And then everyone stood, and I was like, I guess I'm fucking standing. And then everyone walked, and they gave me the wafer. I thought it was a piece of styrofoam. Like I was like, what do I do with this styrofoam? They hand it to me. I take it. I go, thanks. And then I walked away and put it in my pocket.
That's so funny. You put it in your pocket.
Seat. And my friend was like, Hannah, why did you go up? I was like, I don't know. Like, was I not supposed to? And she was like, what did you do with the cracker? And I was like, that was a fucking cracker? What?
The priest was probably like, well, that's the best case scenario for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because you'd be like horrified if you took the Eucharist and you weren't Catholic or whatever.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, my Jewish grandfather found out, and he was like, did she eat the cracker? And my mom was like, no, she didn't. Like, it's fine. Everything's fine.
That's how they get you, is through the cracker. Through the cracker. They booze you up through the cracker. Next thing you know, you're a fucking
Catholic.
You're a fucking Catholic. God damn it.
In 4th grade, too. I was like so fucking confused.
He's worried about, because he knows that the Catholic Church, they take 10%. That was his worry.
That's definitely
the communion.
That darn communion. That's how they get you.
They take 10%, and he's like, they're not going to get 10% out of me. Not for that. I'll tell you what. Not for that measly cracker that you get. Fuck that.
Dude, that cracker is nasty, too. I'm going to be so gross. Real. Matzah is better than the Catholic crackers or whatever they're called.
Is it
Eucharist, or is that what you said they're called?
Yeah, it's called the Eucharist, but like, I don't know what those crackers are made out of.
Dude, I don't either. I saw someone make homemade communion crackers on TikTok. And I think it was literally just flour and water. Like, honestly, I think that was it.
I would be surprised to find out there's styrofoam in it.
Dude, they look like styrofoam and they feel like styrofoam. And when you put them in your mouth, they taste like styrofoam. I've never eaten styrofoam, but that's how I imagine it to taste like.
100%, yeah. So were your parents religious growing up?
No, so the way it was my mom is Jewish, my dad is Catholic, and we kind of just did a little bit of both. Because technically in Judaism, it's passed down through the mom. So technically, I am Jewish. I did not get bat mitzvahed because of my dad, but I did go to Hebrew school for a little bit. I was going to get confirmed, and then I got like into Judaism, but then I got like bored. And we do like Passover, but we also do like a Jewish Christmas. It's very weird, but yeah, they raised us on morals for the most part.
That's good. Because religion, I mean, I don't really care like what fictional character you decide to believe in, but like the fact that like you're trying to pass that stuff on to your kids like that, or like force them into believing it, is fucked up. As one thing I can see about my parents, like growing up, that they did pretty well, was that like their religion was more like, oh, we're using this more as like community with like-minded people, or we also are using this as like almost like instead of going to AA, we're going to do this because I don't think either of my parents are alcoholics, but they come from substance abuse. So they're like, well, we could do this and, help us not become further into alcoholism or whatever. So I think because of the church, like they were able to like drink and have fun, but not be alcoholics.
Yeah.
And have that like support group for themselves and a community to be a part of as well.
Yeah, that is the one thing I wish I had more, was I don't think I got that sense of community as much growing up because we didn't go to like church as a family, or like we didn't go to temple as a family. Like I had like a good core group of friends, but it was like we were very much like the queer kids from my like town, where it was like we don't super fit in, but like we're like buddies, and it was like a fun experience. But I do, because my dad also used to go. Well, he started going back to AA like for funsies, but like he's been sober for dude, that's literally what it is. Like he literally was like, yeah, I'm just gonna go hang with the boys at AA. I'm like, hell yeah, Dad.
Well, I mean, they all have something in common. They don't drink.
Exactly. Well, he just got back from like a retreat with them where he was like, yeah, we just hung out in a hotel for like 2 days. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like, what? But
yeah, there's worse ways to spend your time.
Exactly. But he's been sober for 28 years now. But yeah, like there's like a very heavy religious component within AA, which I get how that like helps for some people for sure.
Yeah. I think that was like my parents' way of like not going to AA instead of like, neither of them are alcoholics. I can definitely say neither of them. My dad, I think, drinks every day, but I think he has like one beer.
Yeah.
Literally, they'll have one beer and that's it.
Okay.
Like with dinner or something. But yeah, very rarely do they get drunk. And mostly, the only time I ever really see my dad like drink heavily is when he goes home. But he goes home to a native reservation. So, I mean, there's nothing else to do on the reservation other than drink. It was tough being sober. So back in December, I had to go to the reservation because I had a relative pass away. And it sucked being there and being sober.
I forgot that you're sober.
Yeah, it sucked.
Okay.
I hated it.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah, that was me, because I was sober for like 3 months at school, and I was like, dude, being sober at college is the worst. I was like,
holy shit. Yeah, that's the time where I guess it's like still a little bit acceptable to be an alcoholic. It's like in your like mid to early 20s, like it's fine. But like the moment you start getting into your late 20s, maybe early 30s, is like it's no longer cute anymore.
Yeah. Like, it's not fun to be, like, raging out. Because I'll see, like... Because I feel like college and comedy are the two places where it's, like, people are just, like, openly alcoholics. And it's just, like, normalized. Which is part of the reason I took the 3 months off. But it's wild.
It's probably a big reason why I'm an alcoholic is the fact that, like, comedy, one, I sell beer for a living. Mm-hmm. And before that, I was in the service industry. So, like, those three things alone breed substance abuse.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, and like openly like find it like, oh, look at us, we're fun. It's fun to be like basically self-destructive.
Yeah. That was me because I work in the service industry when I'm back home. And then like the 3 months like really reset it for me because now I'm just like, I'll just have like a tequila soda and then I'm like chilling.
Yeah, I would definitely say you don't have a drinking problem. But now where do you live, I guess, at this point?
That's a great question.
Because I was like wondering, like, so you live on campus?
Yeah, I live on campus right now. And then when I'm back home, I live at my parents' house. And then I just signed, or I'm like in the process of signing a lease with two other comics in Chicago. So like immediately after I graduate, like 2 days after, I'm moving to Chicago.
Nice.
Which I'm so excited about, but it's going to be a wild turnaround for sure.
It's going to be a good turnaround, though, because trust me, you want to get the fuck out of here as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
Because the moment Cleveland sinks their teeth into you, you're stuck.
Yeah, I like Cleveland. I'm definitely going to come back, but it was never like a thing where I'm like, oh, I'm going to live in Cleveland after graduation. Like,
that's good.
I'll definitely do Cleveland Comedy Festival. I want to apply, and then I'm trying to convince like all of my friends in Chicago to apply, so that way we could all just like road trip. I think it'd be sick.
That'd be fun. And like Chicago's not far at all.
Oh yeah, it's like that drive is so easy too because it's literally just like a straight shot. Mm-hmm. Like I make that drive so frequently, and I'm getting sick of it, but I do love it.
Yeah, it's not a bad drive. It's not a great drive either. It's kind of boring, but it's so close. Like, yeah, also too, it's a much better city to be in Chicago. Mm-hmm. No offense to Cleveland, but my favorite joke about that is like, if you want to become a popular Cleveland comedian, what you need to do is move somewhere other than Cleveland.
Yeah. Become
popular there and then come back. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, you're Mr. Popular Cleveland comic.
Exactly. Well, because I was talking to another comic because like I've had like 3 people be like, I want to move to Chicago. And I'm like, do it. Like, it's so good. And then just like come back. Because in Chicago, you can hit like 5 to 6 spots in a night. It's my favorite. And like, I love how close knit the Cleveland scene is. Like, I feel like I know everybody, but I miss having that accessibility.
Yeah. I mean, we're there.
Keep coughing.
We're there to work. You know what I mean? Like, especially when it comes to like comedy, the downfall of the Cleveland comedy scene is the fact that it's so tightly knit and there's not a lot of mics to hit. Mm-hmm. Because I'd much rather be hitting up mics than wasting time yucking it up for no reason. Like, we're wasting each other's time at that point.
Yeah.
I'd rather hit like before COVID, you were able to do at least 3 spots a night, like Monday through Wednesday, and maybe like 1 or 2 spots on Thursday, and then weekends just nothing. But yeah, before COVID it was like that. And then after COVID it was like, you know, maybe 1 or 2 spots you can go to, and then there's like if you go to the one spot, they don't like that you go to the other. Mm. It's just like, this is so dumb. Like, this is what these are for, is to come in, like, to pass through them.
Yeah.
Come in, do your shit, and then hopefully you've figured it out differently by the time you get to the next spot.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's so important to have like the option to hit like so many things in a night. Like, it's so good. I don't know. I feel like that's like one of the things I miss so much is like that grind, like go a billion miles an hour mentality. It is nice to slow down occasionally, but I love chaos.
But that's what comedy is. Comedy is that like constant repetition of figuring out the material and doing 4 or 5 spots a night. Like, I miss the fact that like you could do that in Cleveland, and or at the very least you should be doing anywhere between 2 and 3 spots an evening, especially in the beginning. But like, even now I've been in 6 years and I still feel like I get to go out maybe like 2, 3 times a week, and that's not enough. It's really not.
Yeah, it's tough. Like, especially because I feel like I've gotten really used to, like, the fact that I have to fucking drive everywhere, like, so long. Because, like, I'm, like, 30 minutes from Cleveland. And then when I'm in Chicago, it's, like, a 40 minute to an hour drive from, like, where I live. And, like, granted, so fucking excited to move to Chicago because then I will no longer have to do that as much. But it's, like, I feel like so many people that gets lost in them where it's, like, there's so many, like, you're so close. You can go so many places. Like, I don't know. It's so strange.
Yeah, I mean, for me, though, it's like, I'm going to spend the money on a major city like Chicago. I might as well just move to New York and live somewhere shitty. Like,
That's also true. New York scares me though, because I know people who've gone to New York who are like relatively successful. Like I have a friend from the Chicago suburbs who moved to New York, and he like opens for Steve Byrne. And I was talking to him, and
he's a killer. That guy's hilarious.
he's awesome. And this guy's really funny, but he like I was talking to him, and he was like, it's fucking hard. And if it's hard for him, I'm like, oh God, I'm fucked if I go there. Like I don't want to go to New York for at least another 7 years, I think.
I mean, some of the best advice I've ever gotten in comedy was, I guess I'm not going to name names. I'm going to leave the name out of it. But he said that, like, I'm in a lucky spot where I can get good and not be seen. And then when I get good at comedy, try and go to, like, New York as often as I can. Try to go to LA as often as you can. Just keep going back to those two places over and over and over again, because one of two things are going to happen. Either it's going to become routine that you continuously go to those places, and when you eventually move there, they'll know who you are.
Yeah.
And you've gotten good where like no one's seen you do shitty.
Yeah, that's like something similar that I heard too was like I think Sam Morril was the one who said this on like a podcast, but he said like when you start in a city, they're going to see you as an open micer. Like which is like that's just because you started there, which is like fine, but it's like that's why I don't want to start in New York is cuz it's like I want to because I've done one New York trip so far and it was like super fun. But yeah, I think my plan is to just keep visiting and
Yeah, I have a lot of issues with people who like, oh, they'll see them one way, and no matter how good they get, they'll only see them in that one way, and that's fucked up, and that's not how comedy should be ever.
I agree.
I hate when people run into that. Like, I never say a comic's a bad comic. They're just not good yet.
Yeah.
They haven't figured it out. And I don't even know if I'm good yet. Like, you know, even having done it for a while now, I'm nowhere near as good as I should be. And I'm nowhere like, I'm still have so much to grow in, and I don't even know if I'm good now. And I'm fine with that. I might not be, and I'll figure it out eventually. Or if, you know, people of like-mindedness will find me too. So, you know, I think it's the best to just focus on yourself and like what you're doing and how well you can do it. And then like, you know, I hate when people get in a repetition, but another thing too that can happen when you move to a major city is that you might actually get in front of somebody who can help your career out, where literally nobody in Cleveland can do that for you.
Yeah.
They're not going to further your career in any way.
I will say the one thing that I've gotten from Cleveland is more road stuff because I've gotten the chance to run longer sets. Like that's the one thing I love about Cleveland is like in Chicago I've done like 15-20 minutes, but like I've gotten like 20 to 30 minute gigs from being in Cleveland. So it's like in that sense it's easier, but it's also like so many people pass through Cleveland, and that's why I love Secret Society so much is because you guys get so many people passing through where it's like, oh, now I can like meet this person and like talk to them and maybe get like a potential gig from that. Like that's like Cleveland is great for networking. Like that's something I've definitely found. And also cuz it's like Chicago, there's like a billion fucking people. Like obviously not like a billion, but there's like a lot of people where it's like when people pass through, like only like the best of the best people get to talk to them. Here it's like I could talk to someone and I'm like definitely not the best of the best, but I'm talking to them because there's just less people.
I don't know, because New York is definitely one of those places where it really does not matter where you're at in the game. Everyone treats each other equally, and you're just a comic in the room. That's one thing I love so much about New York City is like everybody has credits. So having a credit means nothing. And if you don't have a credit, that means nothing too. So I think I got pretty lucky of being able to like hang out with some pretty, bigger comics in New York. And it wasn't weird or strange that I was hanging out because I was just a comic who was there hanging out.
Interesting. Maybe I got to go to New York more.
I love the culture in New York, because there is some sort of phoniness to it in a way because, you know, you never know who you're talking to could be the next big comic. You know, you just don't know who's going to pop off and when and for what reason. And so everyone's very, very nice to each other because of that. But there's also like the nice part is that everyone's really nice to each other because of that. Because they'll like, oh, you're just here hanging out. So you went to New York with your dad, and you guys went and did comedy things?
Yeah, so I went with, initially it was supposed to just be my brother and I. And then my dad was like, "Can I come with?" Because it was right at the beginning of my parents getting divorced.
Oh.
And I was like, "Okay, yeah, but I'm doing comedy stuff." And they were like, "Yeah, that's fine." And they like had fun. We ended up going to see a show at the Cellar. And we saw Ari Shaffir, Sean Patton, and Dave Attell.
Nice.
And I like cried. I made us all get there early. We sat next to the stage, and the comics all walked by my dad to get on stage. And I was like so freaked out. And then my dad was like, because Dave like Attell was standing outside, and I was like, "Oh my God, he's right there." And my dad is like this giant like ex-football player, like 6'5", and he at this time had a cane because he had just gotten hip surgery. He like walked up to Dave Attell and was like, "Excuse me, can my daughter get a picture with you?" So now I have a picture with David Tell because my dad was like asked, but it was
David Tell's a very sweet man.
He's so nice. And
Yeah.
then, like a month later, my uncle texts me and is like, "Do you like David Tell?" And I was like, "Yes." And he was like, "I just like ran into him while walking to work." And so now 2 members of my family have random pictures with David Tell.
That's great.
So
Your dad was a football player?
yeah, my dad played for University of Illinois.
Oh, okay. So he didn't go pro.
No, he was just a college guy.
Chump. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Well, I didn't even play high school football.
You didn't even make it past middle school.
Yeah, what a bitch.
Idiot.
I had a question about that. So yeah, so how was it like? Is your parents got divorced like later?
They like just signed the papers, I want to say 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now being an adult or being out of the house and then having your parents divorce later, I guess, in life, how's that been for you?
It's actually been shockingly great. Well, because me and my brother like knew it was going to happen for a while. Like I've known since I was like, I don't know, 12. And then Jack found out, my younger brother Jack probably got caught on to it like during COVID. And then we were like placing bets. We were like, when do we think it's going to happen? And we both were like, it's going to start like this Jack's first semester of college. And we were correct. That's when they like separated. But they're like significantly better as like friends now, which is like cool.
I love when that happens. That's the ideal situation.
Because like now like they'll be in a room together and won't be like fighting. Like they'll be like talking like normal people. And I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted. And it helps too because it's like we got to like sell the house obviously, but it lines up perfectly with when I was going to move out anyways. So
That's cool.
It all worked out pretty well.
That's great. Plus the Jews and Gentiles.
Oh yeah, they don't mix.
They shouldn't.
They should not.
I'm just
we
kidding.
gotta keep it pure.
Hey, your mom's rabbi was probably like, he's like, I knew it.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000.
Did they have a Jewish wedding or did they?
They had a non-denominational wedding, I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly. I think they were married by a friend, is what I've been told. But yeah, it is kind of cool too because there is a possibility of like if one of them gets remarried, like I get to like go to one of their weddings. I think that would be cool. Like that is something that I would think would be like a fun time.
Yeah, because then you get you get to actually drink at that wedding.
Well, I'll be alive for this wedding.
Yeah, that's true.
I wasn't alive for the first one.
So you think they just stuck together because like for you and your brother?
Yeah, which is like I get the sentiment, but we both were like, when's this happening? And they were like, no, we love each other. And I was like, guys, come on, let's fucking look at this.
What are we doing here?
Yeah.
Why lie to us about it?
Yeah, I think like because my mom's the kind of person who still like I have a joke about this, but she still is like very into Santa Claus, despite the fact that she's Jewish and my brother and I are in our 20s.
That's funny.
But she's very much like, no, it's still real, and we're like, dude, like we know.
Somebody tipped us off.
Yeah, something we've caught on by now. But yeah, are your parents still together?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they're actually happy.
Hell yeah. I feel like that's rare nowadays.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I feel weird saying it.
Like you're bragging.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a brag, but they are happy together. Which is weird. It sometimes it gets a little uncomfortable.
That being happy together.
Yeah. It gets weird. You know what I mean? It's like it's your parents. You're like, they shouldn't be that happy.
Yeah.
Or at least open about their happiness. It's not right.
Yeah. Like get a room. This is gross. That you're affectionate. What?
Yeah, it's weird. Mm-hmm. I don't like it.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable. That is the one thing. Well, because I remember like growing up, they would occasionally show affection to each other, and I'd be like, "Ew, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, that's disgusting."
It doesn't get normal as you like, even with like parents who've always been like affectionate towards each other or like been happy together.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know how there are probably times where they weren't happy together, which is natural for anybody's relationship, especially how long they've been together. But uh, I know that they're happy now, and I think they're happier now that the kids, like all of us kids, are out of the picture and out of the house. But yeah, it doesn't get more normal as you get older.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad my parents are done with each other. Not like done with each other, but like I'm glad that I no longer have to see them like act affectionate, like because it was acting. It was not Oscar worthy, but it was a show.
Now, either of them been with anyone else since they've been divorced?
No, it like as far as I know, no, because I mean, 2 weeks that's a quick turnaround. But yeah, I don't think they have.
Well, how long have they been separated for?
They were separated, so they like I want to say they like officially separated. Well, they started sleeping in separate rooms. Let me think. So Jack is now a sophomore, so like a year ago, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's when it's like that's the beginning of the end. Separate rooms.
Well, because they were honestly like fine during COVID. Like during COVID was probably like the most blissful our family was because we were all just like having dinner together, like goofing off. But then like immediately once we could get out of the house, everyone was like, okay, no one talked to each other for like ever.
How many siblings do you have?
I just have my younger brother.
Do you get along?
Oh yeah, we get along great. He's very much like the opposite of me in like several ways because he's like academically smart. Like he's like a neuroscience and math major.
Oh wow.
And then I'm like comedian, but it's like fun. How many siblings do you have?
I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay.
I should have said that in a different order. I have a younger sister and a younger brother. So my sister's the middle child.
Gotcha.
My brother is the youngest, and he's a doctor. He's out in L.A. And we just started getting along in the last maybe 2 or 3 years. We did not get along for a long time, and it's nice that we get along, but we know our limits with one another now. Mm-hmm. We can only take so much of each other.
Yeah.
There's a limit, and the moment that we both sense that limit, and we both go our separate ways for a little while, like when I was in LA around July of last year, and I was staying in his place, but he was staying. He got a hotel room while I was there, so I was able to stay at his place, and we got along really well. It was a fun time. I met his new girlfriend. She's very sweet, and I don't understand why she's with him, but. I think she's a very sweet person. That's why she's with him.
Gotcha.
And my brother can be very blunt from time to time and doesn't. Him and I are very similar in the fact that we don't know how to communicate without being incredibly blunt about it and just to the point. And we don't know how to like soften it in any way. We just don't even really see the point of it. We're just like, this is how I am, or like whatever. And so we tend to we're like that way with each other. And because we're so similar in the areas in which we don't like about ourselves, that's why we didn't really get along for the longest time.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, me and my brother, we've like, when we were kids, we would beat the shit out of each other. But other than that, like my brother, this explains a lot about me. He would slam my head against a wall, like for fun, like when guests were over to be like, look at this cool trick. And then he loved duct tape so much that he would always like make duct tape weapons, and he made a 7-pound duct tape ball and just like threw it at my head.
My brother would do the same thing.
Yeah. No, Jack and I would do crazy shit.
He would make he would replicate like Lord of the Rings like swords and shit out of like duct tape and cardboard.
Yeah.
I'll give him that much. It was actually quite impressive what he could build with duct tape and some cardboard.
He one time made a duct tape axe and like threw it at a wall, and it went through the wall.
That's amazing.
He also, when he was a kid, he loved breaking TVs. Like one time he was like poking at our TV when he was like 2, and like you know how when you poke a TV it does like the little spider or like it does a little like it does the color thing, you know?
Yes, but like when I was growing up, that TVs didn't do that. You had the big like tube TVs and that big like thick glass on them. So if you punched the TV, it would be fine.
They should keep that. I think they should have. Because what my brother did was he would poke the TV and like start hitting it with a sippy cup, and then he turned to my mom and he goes, "Look, Mom, spider web," and then smashed the TV and shattered it. And he did that twice.
Wow.
Yeah, but
yeah, because those like even the newer like LED TVs, like those were super fragile.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you sneeze too hard in front of it, it would just like explode on you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember one time because growing up, we didn't have a TV in our house until I was like 12 or 13. But we would borrow TVs from people, and because of that, we didn't really have a very sturdy TV stand. I remember one time I was like going to adjust the television, and it fell on top of me, and I was stuck underneath the TV. But like, if that were to happen today, the TV would be broken. I'd be fine.
Yeah.
But then it was like that thing crushed me.
I think that's why they made them more fragile. Because wasn't there like a whole thing like where TVs were just falling on toddlers? Do you remember this?
No.
Like
I believe it.
There was like an era when I was a kid where TVs would just fall on kids. Like no one knew why, but they just would. And then like everyone was like, "We gotta fix these TVs." And it's like, just keep the fucking kids away from the TV. Like,
the murderer is coming from inside the house.
It's literally, this is child neglect. That's what it is.
No, it's my mother's favorite thing to pair with red wine.
Child neglect.
Child neglect.
It goes nice with a nice Pinot Noir.
Absolutely.
Mm.
What was your hometown like at all? Like, were you like what crew did you roll with in high school?
So my hometown, like I mentioned, is very Christian, very conservative, very white, like that kind of thing. And so my friends, like my best friend growing up, their name's Maura, and they're we were like the two like queer kids, like closet queer kids in elementary school. Then in high school we like accumulated more, and it's like I still am friends with all of them. Like we're still in a group chat, like me, Maura, my friend Maggie, and then my other friend Ethan. Like it was just kind of like this group of like we like fit in like with each other, but like it was like we were like the popular kids. Like some of us were theater kids, some of us were band kids, some of us were sports kids, but like we all just like found each other. And then I was very much into the theater crowd too. Like I was friends with a lot of the theater kids. I did show choir and speech team. So also those kids, but more so the speech team kids, because the show choir kids, I liked the show choir kids, but they were more like popular than I was, which was like very strange, which sounds strange.
That's very funny.
But like the show choir at my high school was it was like the football team of the arts, I would say, is the vibe it gave off, which is weird.
That's really funny. Mm-hmm. But I get that because like growing up, I was in a very like artsy liberal church where like all the cool kids were like, the nerds who were like into like film and art or whatever. And I can relate to that, but good on you for actually picking a group of people.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how annoyed I get when people are like, I liked a little bit I was in like every crew. Like I liked I got along with everybody. It's like, no, you didn't.
Yeah.
You got along with a couple of groups that you just mentioned, or everyone hated you.
Yeah. Like I was definitely like I got along with people in like different groups, but it was definitely like I had like my core group of people that I hung out with.
You've shown more spine with that statement than a lot of previous guests.
What have other people said? Were they like, I was the coolest kid in school?
Not that. It's just like, oh, I got along with everybody. It's like, no. Probably not.
No one gets along with that. Even if you're like a nice person. Because I'd say I consider myself relatively friendly, but people definitely thought I was like fucking weird, which they should have. I was fucking weird. But it's like, I feel like people think they're weird at some point.
And you probably were weird. Mm-hmm. And at a certain point, you get to an age where you're eccentric. That's where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's what I feel like I've grown into that weirdness, and now I do comedy. which is the appropriate progression, I'd say.
I'm happy to be weird and not creepy, though. That's
Weird and creepy are a good distinction. I don't think you're creepy. You are weird, though, but in a fun way.
thank you.
You're weird in the way that me and, like, Brian are weird, I'd say. Where we're just, like, bro-y.
Yeah,
Like, bro-y weird.
eccentric.
Eccentric. I like eccentric.
Yeah, because you like it when you're younger, you're weird.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at a certain age, you go from being weird to being eccentric because people just begin to like, oh, that's just who they are.
Yeah, well, because I
They're
feel
not
like
gonna grow out of it.
there's also when you're younger, you don't have the self-awareness to know what you are. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I was like, I know I'm outgoing. I know I like doing these things, but I don't know, like, who the fuck I am as a person. And then, like, as I grew up, I was like, oh, like, I acknowledge these aspects of myself, and now I can utilize them and, like, be aware of them.
Do you think you know who you are now?
No, I mean,
Oh,
to an
good.
extent I do. I think I know who, like, 22-year-old Hannah is in comparison to, like, other versions of myself, but I'm sure in like 3 years I'm gonna look back and be like, I don't know who I was when I was 22. Like,
And that's a good thing.
yeah, I don't think anyone should ever be like completely set in who they are until maybe they're like 90.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and good for you for knowing that, like, okay, I get certain aspects of myself, but I don't know myself. I'm 38 now, and I'm not even sure if I know who the fuck I am. But that's also, I was thinking about this the other day about comedy, where it's like, comedy is a way of like, it is a way of like making you forget who you were and questioning everything of what you thought of who you are now. And like like it's such a weird, like, you start questioning everything where you're like, is that funny? Where like, I remember a time where I wouldn't even ask that question, is it funny? I would be like, oh no, that's funny.
I feel like the self-awareness that comes with comedy is like good and bad in the same sense of like, if you're self-aware, that's good. If you're self-conscious, that's where it becomes like kind of an issue. And it's like weird trying to toe that line.
Yeah.
One of my favorite quotes is I think Mike Birbiglia says on his podcast a lot. I don't know if he's the one who came up with it, but he says, don't compare yourself to people who are fully formed. And that's like a very comforting thing, because I'm like, there are some people where I'm like, that is a person. Like, that is a fully formed person. They know who they are. But then it's like, I'm like, okay, I'm like on my way to that. It's like, it's a comforting feeling.
That's good. I'm a firm believer you shouldn't be comparing yourself to anyone other than yourself 5 years ago. Or like, you know, I guess even like the previous version of yourself, or like last year's self. Like, I've fallen into the trap of like, because I am insecure and I am vain and I am a lot of, I guess, negative connotations of like, I'll see what somebody else is getting and then be jealous of what they have, which is not a good thing. It's not a good characteristic. And I'm constantly like, there was a period of time recently where I was constantly comparing myself to other people and what they were getting or what they had, et cetera, et cetera. And it would just made me miserable and angry and bitter. And now I'm like, I'd much rather compare myself to who I was last year. If I can look at last year and go, I'm in a better spot today than I was 12 months ago, that's the only thing I want to compare myself to. That's it. Like it's an ugly trap of trying to like compare yourself to others. Now, with that being said, you shouldn't necessarily neglect certain aspects of influences. So I don't know if that's necessarily comparing yourself to another person that you admire, but there's certain aspects of them that you like or like you can take from and then make that your own.
Yeah, like finding goals within other people, I suppose. Or not like within other people, but like within what they've done. Because I think like that's the other thing too, is comedy is like the one thing where I don't feel the pressure to like compare, like see someone getting something that I'm not and be like, oh, like fuck them, I want that. Because like I started out in theater, and in theater it's all that. Like everyone is so competitive, everyone is like so angry. Like I don't think it's as much of a thing in college theater. Like I haven't experienced it as much, but I'll talk to some people who still think of it that way. Whereas with comedy, I'm just having fun. And then like if I like I set goals for myself in each of my notebooks. So I'm like, okay, if I'm like doing better like this time around, because it takes like like around 6 months to complete a notebook usually for me. I'm like, okay, if I'm getting these things, like I'm making progress for myself. And it's like, it also is comforting too with comedy. Like I hear like when Mark Normand and like Sam Morril talk about it, like they took like 20 years to get to where they are now. And that's so comforting to me because I feel like in a lot of other like artistic professions, it's normalized to like blow up overnight, so to speak. Whereas with comedy, it's a lot more normalized to just kind of like, okay, we're taking our time, like we're hitting these milestones, and then it's like not as like stressful to do everything like immediately.
I mean, I've said this phrase a million times on this podcast, but I still think it's very true that comedy doesn't deal in fairness. Comedy doesn't deal in, favoritism or even like seniority. You get what you get when you get it. And then hopefully you put in enough time and work into your craft that you can meet the opportunities. That's all you can do. That's all you can keep. And I lose focus of that constantly. All the time I lose focus of the fact that like, I don't need to be worried about, am I getting on this show? I don't need to be worried about, why am I not getting like a half-hour special or whatever? I don't need to be worried about those things. All I can control is the material and how well I perform it and how I curate it. And that's all I should be worried about. And that's the only place where I can actually control anything. That's it. That's all I have in control of is that little aspect of comedy. Everything else is a variable and everything else is going to do what it's going to do anyways. So man, is it tough to like let certain things go when you're like, how much of it is letting it go in a healthy way and how much of it is just being complacent or lazy?
Yeah.
It's a tough line.
It is. I think there is a big difference between like in that same light, like there's a big difference between like fighting for something and being like, I'm going to get this versus like out of like love for the craft and like wanting to do better and then out of spite. Cause I know some people who are like, why is this person performing at Zanies? Like I should be there. Like I've had people straight up tell that to me and I'm like, dude, just like be funnier. Like that's like something I think, it's another fucking quote. Sam Morril says it. I think David Tell said it and Sam Morril quoted it on his podcast. But he apparently one time some guy was just like complaining about not getting a booking and Attell was just like, be funnier. Like that's literally all you can do. And it's like, I kind of love that because it's like, I don't have to rely on somebody else to do that. Like that's not someone else's job. I am the only person that can control how funny I am or how much I write or how much I send out booking emails, like all these things. Like it's like comedy is so self-sufficient and that's like one of the things I love about it.
Yeah. It's one thing that I love about it, and it's one thing that's like a trap for certain people. Like, no one's going to give you anything. You have to ask for it.
Yeah, you can't be you're never entitled to something in comedy.
100%. That's what I love. Oh my God, that's what I love so much about comedy. Comedy always has a way of no matter how good you think you are, or how big you think you got, or how much you think you know this, it has a way of finding you and humbling you. That's what I love so much about comedy. I watched some of the biggest fucking names in comedy bomb. And not that I love watching them bomb, but I do love the fact that comedy always finds a way to like, okay, you can never take it for granted. And you can never say like, oh, I got this now. And there's no point you can become complacent in comedy. The moment you are is the moment you're dead in this.
Exactly. Like you always have to reprove yourself. Like I love it. And it's like, also I've had this conversation with a lot of people too, where they're like, oh, this person's an asshole in the comedy scene. This person sucks. Those people are going to get weeded out. Like that's the other thing I love about comedy is if someone like is an asshole and doesn't care, they're gonna leave at some point. Like that, they're not gonna be around forever. Only the people who like are truly in it, and like granted, some assholes get through. Chris D'Elia exists, but like for the most part, like a lot of these people are getting weeded out now, and it's so nice because then it's like now it's just the people who are here for the right reasons, who care and are like happy to be here.
Yeah, and yeah, you're right. There's gonna be certain people who get through and. Just life in general. Not everybody could be a good egg. But yeah, I had a point and now I already lost it. But I don't know. I'd much rather be focused on like, I guess I'm at a point now where I'm like, I'm a little older. I should be like focused on a career of any type, really. And now I'm at a point where I just don't give a shit. Like I don't expect anything, and I don't care if I'm good or not. Like, except for the fact that like I want to be good, and I want to be a good comic, and I want to be a well-respected comic. But at the same time, like, I'm going to just continue doing comedy regardless if I'm good or not, despite like everything else. Like, I can't control anything else other than that, other than the fact that I can work on the material. And that's a thing I've been trying to like shed a lot of different things that like have been pulling me away from working on material, or pulling me away from focusing on comedy itself. And it's been a good switch for me. And that's another reason why I love doing this podcast, is that like, we can have these types of conversations with myself and like the guests. And then sometimes there's bits that pop up or like moments of my life that could be a bit that I had forgotten about. So I like, even though this isn't necessarily doing stand up, it's like that hand's feeding the other. And anything that I'm doing, I want it to be like, if I'm writing like a script or something like that, I want it to either include material that I couldn't have made into a bit, or I want it to include material that was, or like could be a bit, but I'm putting it in this sketch or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I've always done in the last like 5-7 years now is all been for stand up. Learning how to film, learning how to record podcasts, learning how to, I already knew how to do like sound equipment and shit like that. But like in all those skill sets, the only reason I went back to doing them is for stand up. I told myself a long time ago that I would never, ever be the guy in the background ever again. I wouldn't allow myself to be somebody who worked for somebody else. And I kind of fell into that repetition recently again, but thankfully I noticed it early enough where it didn't become like, oh, there's no way out of this. But I guess maybe there's never a moment where there's no way out of this, but I did promise myself at one point, like I would no longer be like just a sound guy. Mm-hmm. I'm just not who I am. And I know I understand it, and I know I'm good at it, but that doesn't mean because you're good at it, it's what you want.
Yeah.
I'm only good at it because I've had to do it my entire life. It's the only reason. Like when I was 11 years old, I learned how to like set up microphones and the staging equipment and lighting because I had to for my parents' church. Mm-hmm. And now that I'm older, I'm still doing those fucking things, but at least I'm doing them. I'm building a stage, for myself and others, which, that part I'm proud of. I'm happy to share the things I know I'm good at in order to provide a space for other people. But it also has to be for me too. I can't do it without it.
Yeah. There's like this degree of like, not selfishness, but like you have to like assert yourself in certain ways with stand up. Cause like with stand up, it's just you on a stage. Like 100%. That's it. And it's like, you have to kind of carry that into your everyday life as well. Like, something that I've been trying to figure out recently is like, because I'm trying to find like a day job when I moved to Chicago. I've applied to maybe 150 jobs at this point. And initially I was like, oh, I'll get like a corporate job that's like pays well, which would be great. But then I was like thinking about it, and my acting teacher at school like told me something very similar to what you were saying, where it's like you can't get comfortable at a day job because you're gonna stop doing like the thing you really want to do. And I like thought about that. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna get a job at Target. Like,
and you'll hate yourself for it.
Oh, I know I would hate myself. I hate a desk job, and I'm like, why the fuck was I even thinking I would ever do that? Like, one of my jobs back home over the summer was I gave bike tours of Chicago, and it was perfect because I got to do like comedy comedy while biking around Chicago talking to
cool.
tourists. And then they would sometimes come to my shows afterwards, which was kind of lit. But it's like I'd much rather do something like that granted doesn't pay as well. But it's like, I know I'm not going to like slack off when it comes to stand up.
Also, too, like, even if you got like a normal, like I have a normal 9-to-5 job, but my 9-to-5 job has never kept me from doing comedy, and I never would let it. Like, I know come 5 o'clock, I'm done. I don't have to think about this job. I'm not getting like. That's why I switched to the job I have now. Is they don't email me after 5 o'clock. They don't call me after 5 o'clock. It's not expected of me to do anything after 5 o'clock, and I don't have to be there till 9. So I could be out till 1:30, get home, get home around 2, be in bed by 2:30, and that's good. 6.5 hours of sleep.
Yeah,
It's not bad. In the like 9, the 6.5 hours is enough sleep for you to function throughout the day. Still, still be good at your job, do all the tests you need to do, and then go back out and do stand up again.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of days are like, I work from 9 to 5. I come home, I eat, I take a nap, and then I go out and do something comedy related. And that cycle is just over and over again. And I know that's not a complaint. I love it. I do need to start getting out and doing mics more. That's one thing I've been kind of like, I don't like doing mics during January and February because it's usually the time when like 2 different groups of people are coming out. It's the New Year's resolutions. I've done it for so long now that it's like, oh, okay, I know why they're here, and I'm not knocking it. Like you should do it until your heart's content, and if your heart's content, then you can move on.
Yeah.
And some people's process is a little shorter than others. I'm not knocking it, but the people I hate and I despise are the fantasy football motherfuckers.
Dude, I fucking hate the fantasy football people. They make me so, and like, granted, okay, thank you for bringing an audience of non-comedians. Thank you for that. But also, go fuck yourselves. They're all talking the whole time. Like, I fucking have such an issue with them. And also, like, okay, not to knock the New Year's resolution people. Sometimes they are genuinely good. But I was talking to my friend about this, and I had this analogy that I thought fit because when I was in Chicago for the New Year's resolution wave.
I can only imagine it's 10 times worse there.
Oh my God, it was awful. Like I was at a mic, because it was also weird because I couldn't tell who was a New Year's resolutioner or who was just starting because I had been gone for like a month. And so I had like this analogy where it's like a lot of people who New Year's resolution it's like when you play, like, have you ever played a video game one time and you win the first time? And then the only reason you play the game again is because you think you're going to win again, but then you're bad at it. It's like that, where it's like these people are only doing it because someone in a group chat said they were funny. And then they were like, I want to do this because people think I'm good at it, not because I love writing, because I love stand up. Granted, some people discover that they love those things through that process, but a lot of them don't. And that makes me mildly angry. It shouldn't, but it does.
No, I totally agree with all of that. Like, some people, like, I sometimes I force myself into doing projects I didn't want to do because it's better to force yourself into doing something and accomplishing it than not doing anything at all. And sometimes you find the passion in the process of like forcing yourself to do it. Mm-hmm. Some people have that process, and I'm not going to knock them for it, but yeah, like it's better to have done and instead of living a life of coulda, woulda, shoulda. So I like your analogy a lot. Like having played a video game and you were good at the first time, and then you go play that video game again and you find out you're not as good at it, so you just quit. Mm-hmm. You quit playing the game. You're like, well, I already beat it once.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think there's some people too that like all they really wanted to do was try it, and then they can just tell their friends like, oh, I know how hard that is.
Yeah, that part I do kind of respect. I do sometimes what I have seen with the New Year's resolutioners, at least in Chicago, is sometimes they'll just like go on stage and like clearly have written nothing. And it's like, if you're going to do it, do it. Like try.
Yeah, that is crazy to go up there with nothing. Mm-hmm. That is wild to me.
I don't get it. I would cry, I think. Like, I remember the first time I did an open mic, I ended up only doing like 2.5 minutes, but I wrote that 2.5 minutes for like 2 weeks in advance. I was so nervous.
My first 5 minutes took me a month to write, and I practiced the hell out of it. Like I knew it backwards and forwards, and like I would write it out. I would tape myself saying it all. I would read it to myself, like into a tape recorder, and then play that back and like listen to that, and then listen to it back and write it out. Like several different ways that I try and memorize it. I memorized that 5 minutes, and I had it down to the 5 minutes exactly. And I went out and did my first mic, and I did the full 5 minutes. I got the light. I was so proud of myself. That's all I wanted. All I wanted was to get the light. I didn't actually care if I got a laugh or not.
Did you get a laugh?
I got one laugh right at the end.
Hell yeah.
And I was hooked. Like I have not looked back, probably for the worst, but to a detriment to both my health and relationships. But I sometimes it's like hard to imagine a life without comedy.
Dude, I don't know what I would be doing if I didn't have it. Because I remember the reason I started doing stand-up was because I did high school speech team and I did comedy for that. And I did stand-up twice at a class in Second City when I was 16 and 17. I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. And then COVID happened and I was like, I have to do stand-up again. Like, this is insane. Because it was right when speech ended too. So I just wasn't doing comedy. I was like, I can't not do this.
I wonder if I would have... Sometimes I do wonder if I would have found comedy earlier in life had I lived in a different city other than Cleveland. Because in Cleveland, all of the acts on the marquees are all from New York or Los Angeles or Chicago. So you think in your head like, oh, if you want to become a stand-up comedian, you have to move to those places because there's nowhere around here to do that. Mm-hmm. You think that. I thought that for the longest time. I had no idea there was a comedy open mic until like a friend of mine told me about it. And I was now almost 30.
Yeah, that was me because I didn't know because I started when I was 19 and I just didn't think there was anywhere under 21-year-olds could go. And then like two of my friends from high school speech team told me, they were like, there's one open mic in fucking Aurora, Illinois. And then I went and that place has since closed, but they like let me in and it was like the best thing ever. And I was like, okay, I can do this even though I'm not an adult.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's cool that some people found it so early. Like, I think it's because of that, you guys are going to end up becoming really great comics by the time you're my age. So that's awesome. Like, I love that about it. Like, I wish I would have found it when I was younger. Who knows? Like, I don't know. I don't know if my life would have been that different because at one point I was a musician. I toured a lot, and I wouldn't change any of those memories for the world. But sometimes you do wonder, like, oh, if like I had found this earlier, would I have joined those bands? Probably not. Mm-hmm. I probably would have gotten hooked on comedy. I like talking way more than I like playing music. I like
talking's the best.
Yeah, and it is scary at first because when you're so used to being a musician and having that instrument to rely on, that wall of sound, and it doesn't matter whether or not people are listening to you. Mm-hmm. Where comedy, it's like really reliant on whether or not that audience participating for the most part. I don't think that going to an open mic necessarily needs an audience. Yes, does it help? Yes, does it help? Like, can you go a little bit quicker? Sure. But that's not really the point of being there. The point of being there is to do the material and hearing how these words sound coming out of your mouth and how you feel about it.
Yeah. The one thing I will say is a benefit of having an audience, and I've seen this more in Chicago than I have here. Some comics just become comics, where it's like they only want to make other comics laugh. And then when they get in front of an actual audience, it's like not a disaster, but it's like not the same reaction. That's the one benefit of an audience. But if you're getting just like a rep in where it's like, I need to learn this new joke, that I think is the most helpful.
And I agree with you. Like, they do end up becoming, and then when they get in front of a real audience, and the audience isn't quite the same as how a comic would be responding, then they just don't know how to handle it. They like crumble in on themselves. So like, well, this is funny. Mm-hmm. Or they'll like blame the audience. It's like, well,
that's the fucking worst.
It's like, well, no, they just don't have the same sick, twisted sense of humor, or like, because we hear so much heinous shit all the time from like either other comics in conversation or from open micers saying just ridiculous shit for the sake of saying ridiculous shit. We're desensitized now because of it. So what would be, I guess a high impact thing to say is no longer that anymore. No longer has the teeth it once had.
It's like this weird balance because I feel like there is an art to doing dark humor and seeing how it translates from an open mic to an audience. Because like I hear a lot where people will be like, "How does like Mark Maron work things out? Like where he like does these wild things, or like Louis or something like that." And it's like I feel like you just have to find that balance between like what is the like do comics just find this funny, or is this like actually going to translate to an audience? Because not every audience is ready for like a pedophile joke. Like you gotta figure out a way to like not spoon feed it, but like make it more palatable.
Or that, or just establish who you are as a person before you say those types of things. So this way they know the character in which, or the place in which these things are coming from. If you just come out and start telling pedophile jokes, that's all they know of you.
Yeah.
That's all they know of is you're a person who likes talking about pedophilia. They don't know that you're like a fun, sweet, innocent person who just so happens to have this quirky pedophile joke.
Yeah.
So you need to establish who you are as a person. And sometimes that takes people careers.
Oh my God, yeah. Well, because like a lot of comics who are famous, like if you took one of those jokes, honestly, like a lot of like some of Gillis's stuff, like if you took one of his like Down syndrome jokes and gave it to just like an open micer, like everyone's gonna be like, what the fuck? Like, but like knowing the context behind who that person is, it's like, oh, now we have like a better idea of this. Like there's such a weird balance you have to find with a lot of those kinds of jokes. It's so strange.
And I think too, because of podcasting, I think, we understand who these people are because you listen to their podcasts and you hear them talk for hours and hours and you understand them as a person. So when they get up and say those things, they've already established a relationship with you. So you understand, like Shane Gillis used to work with special needs people, where, somebody like my mom just sees Shane Gillis as like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
she doesn't know who he is. Like, she doesn't know his past or anything like that, or him as a person. So to her, she just sees a guy making fun of like special needs people. So there's two sides to that coin, but like, yeah, I think it doesn't take long to establish who you are as a person. So as long as you can do that real quickly, I think Dave Flint's like one of the masters of that.
He's so good at it.
Dave Flint says some wild shit.
Yeah.
But he's already established the fact that he's just a quirky, fun guy, and he means no harm to anyone. And as long as he's done a good enough job of doing that, then his set's going to go just fine.
Exactly.
And there's been times where we all do it. We all get in, like, oh, like you take it, you forget that, like, oh no, I need to establish who I am to this audience because they don't know who I am, and nor should they. Who am I?
Exactly.
Like they're not like following my Twitter account or Instagram or whatever, so they're not like, there isn't that already established relationship with that individual. So
yeah, it's so difficult to work those out. Because I remember, oh my God, Dave Flint actually did say this to me. Like, because I have a lot of jokes about sexual assault, which is like, that's just like, I like telling these jokes. And then like, when I was working them out at open mics, I don't know why I did this. I put them first in the set just because like they were getting laughs. But like Dave Flint came up to me and was like, why are you talking about all that sexual assault stuff right off the bat? You're scaring people. And I was like, that's a really good point.
it's a very valid point.
Very good point. You got to like cushion it a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, sometimes, like I said, sometimes it takes people a whole career. Look at Bill Burr. Bill Burr spent the first like 17 years of his career just explaining how he grew up. And that's all he did for 17 years, was just like, here's my childhood. And now that he is the comic he is today, he's able to say some pretty outlandish shit because we understand where it's coming from. And we'll accept it from him because we've known him for so many years. Like we will accept those where somebody like me would say the same thing and then be booed off the fucking stage, you know, which is how it should be.
He is a ginger, so he gets away with it.
Yeah, exactly. They pity him. How do you like your friends who you grew up with? How do they respond to your comedy?
They respond pretty well. So my first open mic I ever did, it's actually my phone background. Oh, I knocked my water bottle over. My phone background is me and my two best friends in the bathroom at my first open mic. So like they came to my first open mic with me, and we had a tradition for a really long time because it was a Monday night mic. We the three of us would go to this open mic, and it was the suburbs of Chicago. So I was one of the only women there. And then like me and my two other friends were like, we were like the only queer people there. So we would just like sit in the back. And then anytime like a like straight white man would just like tell a queer joke, we'd be like, interesting. Like we'd like judge it. But it was like so much fun. Like that entire summer, we'd go every single Monday. We'd get Portillo's afterwards. And then it was awesome. And then the other guy that I'm friends with, he actually was my boyfriend in high school, but he started doing comedy with me. Like we did speech team together and we did original comedy, and that's how I got into comedy. So they're all quite supportive.
Nice.
They are sometimes like, why can't you hang out with us at night? But other than that, they're like chill.
That's cool. Yeah, I don't know if I think a lot of my friends probably find it somewhat weird, but they're very accepting of it. And yeah, I miss everything because of comedy. Like even we went out with some friends on Sunday, and they were like, "Oh, it's really nice to see. We never get to see you." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm busy usually with something comedy related." So yeah, it's nice to have friends who seem to be supportive, but I don't know. They're not unsupportive. I just think that they just find it odd, and you know. Some group find it like just strange, and the other ones just find it like, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, that is some of.
And that's it.
Sure. I've shockingly got a lot of people who, at least surface level, seem supportive. Like I've gotten like messages from people from high school being like, "It's so cool you're doing this. Like message me if you're ever doing a show in like this state." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah." Like I've gotten like shockingly supportive feedback. There are definitely some people who are like, "This is fucking weird," but. I mean, there's always going to be people like that with anything.
I agree. I think it's just the nature of like people worry about each other because they care, and in a way too, it's your life to live. So what business is of it? Then, but it is a way of them showing how much they care about you, even though it's in the wrong way.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone's flawed in different ways, so I think it's a good place to stop at.
Yeah. Sounds good.
We're all flawed in different ways. Where can people find you on social media?
I am on Instagram at hannahb.elmont because Hannah Belmont was taken. So Hannah Belmont with a dot between the B and the E.
And you have like a comedy? You do something similar to Secret Society?
Yeah, I do like pop-up productions. We're getting some consistent venues, but that's called Understated Comedy on Instagram. So that's where I produce shows.
Hell yeah. And then for me, you can find me at Instagram at Jeremy_Demery. And also make sure to follow Secret Society Comedy. You can go to secretsocietycomedy.com, figure out where we're at next, and make sure to check out all the shows on vixenvariety.com. See where we're at next. I think I'm going to be their permanent MC for at least a little while. So
is that the burlesque thing?
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's been fun. And they're sweet people. So, all right. Well, thank you so much again for doing this. This went way longer than most podcasts. So
that means it's good though.
It's very good. It was a very good conversation.
Yeah.
So thank you again for being here, and thank you again for doing this. This has been Not Weird, Just Homeschooled with our guest Hannah Belmont.
You should change it to Not Creepy, Just Homeschooled.
Yeah.